Hi, and welcome to Annual Goals. This is one of the sessions in our IEP On Demand series. I'm Amy Shelley, and I will be leading you through this part of the training. Each training that is conducted by the Mississippi Department of Education begins with the vision and mission. Pause your video now and read through the Mississippi Department of Education vision and mission. Each training also begins with the State Board of Education goals. Once again, pause your video and read through these 6 goals that are set by the Mississippi Department of Education. For this training, you will want to have on hand the notes page that you will have found on the home part of this course. You will also want to have your IEP guidance document and the MDE IEP form so that you can reference those as we go through this training. When writing measurable annual goals on our IEPs for our students, there's a few things we need to keep in mind. We need to remember that these goals need to be meaningful, they need to be understandable, and they need to be able to be accomplished within one school year. So we want to write our goals so that they're ambitious, that our children are going to have to work for them, but that they're also going to find success and be able to master the goals that we've included on this IEP. For some of our students, there may be multiple areas of need that have to be addressed. And there might be so many that we can't write a goal for every single one. So we have to prioritize those most critical needs that we have to address for our students and focus on those. And these goals are both academic and functional goals. So kind of keep that in mind as we move along. When we refer to academic goals, we want to focus mainly on those areas such as reading and math, language arts, because those are the areas where we find our foundational skills that go across the curriculum. So if we keep the focus of our annual goals mainly in those academic areas, that's going to help our students succeed in all areas of their academic career. So as we look at functional performance as a piece that we can use to write our annual goals, we have to look at the scope of functional performance because that can be a variety of activities or a variety of skills that our students are missing that can range from organizational type skills for those students who forget to bring materials to class or who can't remember to turn their completed assignments in. It can also refer to those daily living skills that some of our students lack. For our students who have difficulty dressing themselves or who can't feed themselves or who have difficulty going to the bathroom on their own. So you can see that there's a wide range of areas that we can address under the term of functional performance for our students. What we do have to keep in mind is that sometimes this functional performance or these functional skills can impact our students academically or in the educational environment. So as we're looking at what areas need to be addressed through annual goals, we have to look at the whole student, at all of those areas that are going to impact their success in the classroom and in the school environment. So remember back on one of the very first slides in this training session, I told you that we wanted our goals to be ambitious, but that they had to be achievable within the school year. For some of our students, they are significantly below where they need to be. For instance, you may have a 6th grader who's reading on a 2nd grade level, or you may have a 9th grader who's reading on a 2nd grade level. So there is a wide gap between where they are currently functioning to where they should be in relation to their peers. Now we know that there's no way to make up that large of a gap within one school year because quite honestly, it took them longer than that to be that far behind. So as we're looking at writing our annual goals, we want to be sure, knowing that we're not going to make up that huge gap within one school year, we have to know and we have to work toward closing that gap as much as we can. So once again, those goals have to be ambitious, because we want to move them as far as we possibly can, but also achievable, because that's one of the foundations of annual goals. They have to be accomplished within one school year. So as we're writing annual goals, there are 4 components that go into each goal that we write. Now, in your additional resources in this session, back on the home portion of the page where you located this training or this session in the IEP on demand, you'll find the button for additional resources. And under that button, under that tab, you will see a goal writing words sheet, and you will also find a goal writing template that is there. Those 2 pieces are, now is a good time to pull those out to look at them, because they go along with what we're going to be talking about here. So the components that go into each goal, there are 4 of them. The first is condition. And that's the situation where you want the student to do something, or the material that you want the student to use, or the setting where you want it to happen. But it's that piece where you are looking for, or what the student is using to accomplish the goal. The behavior, that's the verb word. What do we want our student to do? And keep in mind, we have to be able to measure it. So we have to see it. We have to know that the student has done it. So it's a verb word. Criteria, that's the level of mastery, or how we're going to measure. So if we are, let's say, checking a student's reading comprehension, it may be that the student is going to read a passage, which would be the behavior, and then answer 6 out of 10 questions correctly. So the 6 out of 10 would be the criteria. If it's a child that we're wanting to observe that student being on task, it might be that the student will remain on task for 2 minutes before needing to get up and move. So always keep in mind that your criteria has to match whatever that behavior is. So the measurement tool and knowing that they've done it, knowing that they've mastered it, has to match what you're asking them to do. And then time frame is perhaps the easiest part of the goal, because it's typically that our annual goal is written for 36 weeks, or by the end of the school year. And then our short-term instructional objectives that go under that are typically 9 weeks, 18 weeks, and 27 weeks, because that's the time when all students get their report cards sent home. So we send the report of progress home at the same time. Now, just because that's typical, you don't have to do it that way. Or you can have additional STIOs with your annual goal, and that's fine. But for every one that you write, that report of progress has to go home at the end of that time period. So on this slide, you're looking at a screenshot of the annual goals portion of the IEP. If you are looking at your MDE IEP form, you can flip to that page and see the entire page. This portion is at the top of the page, and you can see where we have the area that we are addressing, and then the place where the annual goal is written. So here's an example of an annual goal that's written for a student between the ages of 3 and 5. You can see that the annual goal example is color-coded to match those same colors that were on the previous slide where we looked at the 4 components individually. Take a moment and read over this and match those components to that portion of the annual goal that's written here. This is the MDE IEP form that is for our students that are ages 6 to 20. Notice that the academic area is listed as either reading or math, because remember, those are our foundational skills, and that's going to be the focus of our annual goals. And then we also have the functional areas, and if you don't see the functional area that you need to address for a student, be sure and click that other box and then write it in. On the next slide, we're going to look at an example. So a few reminders when you think about annual goals. We have to keep in mind that they can be measured as written without additional information. And a correctly written goal identifies how you're going to measure progress and the mastery of the desired skill. We also know that we want it to be where anybody who reads this goal can understand what we are asking the student to do and they'll know how to implement it. And we avoid using vague, unobservable terms like the word appropriate, because what might be appropriate for me might be very inappropriate for you. Or if we say we want our student to participate, what does participate look like? We want to be specific so we know exactly what that student is supposed to do to master the goal. These are the resources that I talked with you about earlier. Please find those on the home portion of this training, and you can keep those copies and have them nearby as you begin to write your IEPs. For more information on IEPs or to request additional trainings, email Amy Shelley at ashelley@mdek12.org.